Hello, Sophie Miller.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. I'm honestly so excited for this episode. Watching you and your progress has just been like really inspiring for me. How many followers does Sophie have and how many followers does PLM have on LinkedIn?
I have 119,000, PLM 143,000.
That is insane. That's insane.
I actually wanted to call PLM the marketing babe. That is awful. I was on Google looking for graduate roles, Googling, words to use on my CV, words not to use on my CV, and essentially just spiraling. I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder and OCD when I was 14. I've always thought that self-improvement was bullshit. A lot of people can do what you do, but better. But no one can do what you do the way you do it. We're too quick to discard. Followers don't matter. I think they do.
Hello, Sophie Miller.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. I'm honestly so excited for this episode. It's one that I've been looking forward to, like very selfishly, because I feel like we've almost been on very different journeys, but at the same time.
Agree.
So I feel like watching you and your progress has just been like really inspiring for me as a business owner, and for, I'm sure, thousands of people in your community. But before we get into that, let's rewind a little bit. What was school like for you?
I hated school. So for secondary school, I went to an all-girls school.
Okay.
And anyone listening or watching who's been to an all-girls school will probably relate. I like just the culture of young females finding themselves is really difficult, and to be there for 5 years whilst figuring yourself out. I enjoyed no part of my secondary school experience, and on to sixth form. Sixth form was a really hard time for me. I had been with a boyfriend at the time for like 3 or 4 years, and he dumped me. Rude, right? Dumped me.
What a mistake that was.
know.
I hope he's watching this.
Oh,
Look what you lost.
true. And I kind of just totally rebelled against life in sixth form. So 17 and 18, one of the reasons I don't drink now is because I did probably a lifetime's worth of drinking then. So I had a few really awesome friends at sixth form. We'd go out on Mondays for student night, Wednesdays student night, Fridays and Saturdays for normal nights out.
4 times a week.
Yeah, and go to school sixth form school the next morning.
Oh gosh.
And I think that, a broken relationship at 17, 18, mixed with this looming decision of, right, Sophie, it's time to decide, are you going to go to uni? Neither of my parents, none of my family went to uni. Are you going to get a job? Now is your time to determine what the rest of your life is going to look like. But you're also a really broken teenager who's trying to figure things out. So I found that really hard.
We can, and I think we should definitely delve into that a little bit more, because I think you are the youngest guest we've had on the podcast. You are. And so I think almost I don't know if you do, I have a responsibility to talk about that aspect of stuff now that I've got a little bit more of a platform, because it was such a scary time, that whole process of going to uni and then just trying to decide what career. But anyway, we'll get onto that. In terms of school, what did you study? What kind of was your big ambition at school? Did you have one? Did you know what you wanted to do?
So I've always been quite creative, like a physical sense. When I was little, I used to get all of the videos. Remember videos back in the day? We had this big black shelf in our living room, and I'd get all of the videos off, and I would put them in colour piles, or I would order them. I used to love paint by numbers and colouring growing up as well. And at GCSE level, I studied photography, which was really interesting. I didn't know that was a GCSE until I studied it. So into sixth form, I wanted to head off to uni or whatever that might look like afterwards, and do editorial and advertising photography.
Nice.
And it's really interesting now because there's such a marketing mix in what that role would entail, what that career path would be. So it's really funny to me now looking back that I almost was heading into marketing then without even knowing. So at sixth form, I studied business, English literature and language, media studies, which was my favourite. We got to make music videos and it's really cute stuff. And I went to a Catholic high school. I'm not a Catholic, I'm not really. But I went to a Catholic high school and I studied theology and ethics.
Oh, wow. I would never have guessed that.
Now, the sole reason I did that, and I don't think I've ever told this story before, is on my induction day at sixth form, my first day, we went early to pick our subjects. And I was talking to this guy. Again, relationship had broken down. We were on the hunt for a new boyfriend, right? I was talking to this guy and he was like, you should do theology and ethics. Awesome. He was my teacher. I didn't realise that was my teacher. And I stood there like, oh, I love theology and ethics.
My
I'm going to
gosh.
sign up to this subject. And I walked in the next day and there he was. I dropped it after a year. I got a U. Mrs. Fan just remains in my heart. That wasn't meant to be. So yeah, quite a mix, but definitely leaning into that creative aspect, business, English, hoping to do photography, but
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't. I'm here.
How did you do academically? Were you quite a studious person? Did you enjoy school?
I got good grades, like A's and B's through GCSEs and A levels, but I didn't do a single piece of homework. Even still now, running my own business as a team of one, it's probably the worst habit I have. I do not work until it's due, like tomorrow. And I was very much the same at uni, the same at sixth form, the same at school. I like learning in a practical sense.
Yeah.
Like I know if I could watch a video or do to learn, great. But obviously school is just a complete different environment.
Yeah.
Sit, read. I don't want to read. I don't want to learn in that way. So I felt, yeah, it's a shame that different thinkers and learners kind of put in a box of, well, this is just how it has to be, how you have to learn. So I did well, set myself up well for life, I suppose. But did I enjoy it? No, not at all.
Okay. Fair enough. And university, what did you study?
I went to university at 21, so a little later than, I guess, conventional. I studied marketing, advertising and branding. It was in my hometown at University of Gloucestershire, and I picked that purely because there was no exams. It was all theory-based, so a lot of it was either coursework or, again, that practical aspect of doing. So a lot of my modules were kind of like, here's a mock brand, go and make a campaign, present it on Canva, make some visuals. So that was when I enjoyed learning, because you're doing. So marketing, advertising and branding. And I'm quite glad that I did like the three in one, just for a broader understanding.
Yeah, I didn't even know that they did a degree that was all three of them combined, because that just gives you so many more skills. And I love the practical element of that. I say even like now, I can't believe there's marketing degrees that are all 100% theory based, and you can learn the concepts and the theories and the models and the frameworks and the strategy, but unless you implement it, then you're not really learning much at all. Because execution is 100% of everything, right?
It's so different in practice as well. Like I remember being sat at a desk learning about how to build a funnel, for example, and understanding it in that sense, seeing it drawn on a piece of paper, but then coming to do it where you're using data to understand, okay, someone's here. It is a whole other world, and I think that's a lot of the reason. I have a lot of friends who finished uni, went straight into a marketing manager role or coordinator role, and even with that practical element of our degree still struggled because there's such a disconnect. But yeah, lucky that there was that element there.
And then after university, did you have a particular company or job role in mind that you were like, okay, I've got my degree and I want to now do this? Or did you have a clear vision of where you wanted to go next?
Oh, so I was already a year and a bit into PLM when I graduated. And I was freelancing. At that point, I'd freelanced with Lounge Underwear, who are just my dream people. I was hoping post that to work there. Failing that, like anything, marketing, fashion, creative, either looking agencies, although I'd worked in an agency prior in an influencing space and it was just the worst culture ever. So it kind of tainted my view of agencies. Or like somewhere big, ASOS. That was the goal, I think.
Yeah, like a big recognizable brand. And like brands like ASOS and Vans, like they were like the cool brands at that time, weren't they, to work for? So what was really interesting, what you just said, is you had PLM, so Pretty Little Marketer, for anybody who does, like, I don't know how you don't know the brand, but Pretty Little Marketer, which I want to get onto because I really want to know how you came up with that name as well.
Yeah.
But if we go back to, so you started that whilst you were at university, but you were still looking for kind of graduate jobs in the marketing space, which I think is so nice to hear, because nothing happens overnight. So tell me the process of starting PLM and why that happened.
Oh yes, I always feel like the origin story of PLM is so underwhelming because I had no plan. I didn't wake up one day and think I'm gonna start a business, I'm gonna do this. It kind of just happened by accident. So it was the end of my second year, so it was June 2020, reverting our minds to that very traumatic pandemic time. That actually, when I think on it, that summer was quite blissful because we were all just inside, in our garden. So in turmoil over that, first of all. Just finished my second year. And I went to university at 21 after 3 years in a corporate events coordination role. Hated the role. I worked 6 a.m. till 2 p.m. So if it was a hair wash day, I'll be waking up at 4 a.m. It was a nightmare. It was very like white collar, I guess would be the term, like very strict. This is how we do things. And I went to university to solve this need or this question of I need to figure out what I want to do. Okay, marketing sounds cool. I'm going to go to uni and uni will fix that problem. It didn't. I don't think it does for a lot of people. So I'd finished my second year. I'd literally just submitted my last assignment, all remote because we were, in the pandemic, and I was having a bit of a cry on my sofa. Just feeling really lonely, at that point. I think I was 22, 23. I'm in my 20s now. I'm over halfway through uni. Why don't I have it figured out yet? And I think especially now, my job's the internet, yours is too, can be really easy to get into this false perception of everyone's got it figured out. Why don't I? And that was very much me then. And I was on Google looking for graduate roles, Googling, words to use on my CV, words not to use on my CV, and essentially just spiraling down this thought of, I've got nothing figured out, so if I just open my laptop now and Google 300 things, that will solve all my problems. It didn't.
It really does.
It made it worse.
I think what you've said is so relatable, and I imagine there'll be students even now at university going through the exact same thing. That pressure, it's almost like you leave college or sixth form and you've done a range of subjects, and then literally over springtime in your second year of A-level or sixth form, you're expected to then decide what you want to do for the next 60 years of your life. How bizarre is that? And that expectation level is just so fucked up. And then again, that happens when you leave university, because it's like this dog environment where everybody's grappling for these grad schemes, and it's certain companies that everybody wants to go and work for, and there's maybe 10 spaces on one of their schemes and there's thousands of people applying. And as more people go to university, it just gets more saturated and more saturated. And therefore, I don't know if you agree, but I think degrees in the sense have lost some of the value that they had, whilst the value's gone down because it doesn't open the doors that it once did. The price has gone up. And in any other situation, we'd be like, hello, can I speak to the manager? But do you feel that?
Yeah, it is ludicrous. I think my degree was whatever the price is. Now it's 9,250 a year. And I was actually looking at my student debt the other day.
Damn.
And 'cause I'm a limited company now, set up in the most tax efficient way. So essentially I'm not really paying off my student loan anymore. But as a sole trader, which is what I was for the first year last year, I was paying hundreds of pounds a month to pay off my student loan. But the wildest thing was that although I was paying, it was still going up because there's obviously so much interest on the loans these days. No, I very much felt the same. I, in that second year as well, obviously that is when you start looking at your grad schemes, even though it's over a year away. And I think that for me only just contributed to that factor of I'm so lonely, I'm the only one struggling. And like you said, there's 10 spaces, there's 20,000 graduates, if not more, and just becomes, you know, a dogfight for your dreams that you are taught and you believe everything's riding on this role, there's no other option. And it's really scary. And the support just isn't there.
It is. And like, it is really lonely. I remember feeling, I think probably like compounded by the fact we were in a pandemic and it was lockdown and you weren't seeing your friends in lecture theatres. You were sat literally in like a box room in student accommodation, writing a dissertation, but at the same time as trying to get the first class degree that everyone's like pushing you towards, you're then also like trying to manage like your social life and your friendships and relationships.
It's a lot.
And then it's like, okay, grad schemes, like jobs.
Yeah.
And it starts so early, like you said. It's not something you just apply for. It's like a whole ass process, like interview, second interview, psychological tests, or you know, numerical reasoning, all that stuff.
It is like army level
It
training.
is.
I remember at the end of my first year, I was applying for placement years. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
And I got an interview at Jaguar in Birmingham. I'm not too sure. I didn't want to move away.
Yeah.
I'm in the southwest. And for like an 18k grad scheme salary, when I can just live at home, I was like, I'm not moving away. I want something local. So I had, I think, an online assessment where I had to, it would pop up on like, it looked like Zoom. It'd pop up with a question. It then had a countdown of 10 seconds and then you had a minute to answer.
Yeah.
But I had only had 10 seconds to process that question. And then there were 3 panel interviews on Zoom with employees there. And then the last stage was like an assessment day where loads of students went. By that point, I was out.
The assessment
I don't want
centres.
to work there anymore.
Can't we talk about the assessment centre?
Have you ever done it?
Yes. They're fucking horrible. Have you never done one?
No,
Oh my god,
I didn't
let me
get
quickly
one.
paint the picture. So mine was on a Zoom. So I had like multiple, some were in person. And you go there and there's maybe like 10 people in the room and you're all sat there. And you're all like friendly, like, hello, I'm this person, I'm so-and-so. And in your mind you're like, there's one job here, I need to beat all you bitches. Like, it's literally like that mindset. Everyone's been so friendly, it's all so fake.
It reminds me of, I recently rewatched The Hunger Games.
Yeah.
I don't know if you spend much time on TikTok, but my whole TikTok is just like The Hunger Games content. So I rewatched all of them, and it reminds me of that bit before the games when they're all like practicing in a big room and they're like, oh, this is how you paint, this is how you do this.
Yeah.
Knowing that in a day you're about to fight to the death.
Yeah.
So why are we doing
That's how it feels. And then you also, in one of the group activities, we all sat around a table and there's like 5 people from the company there with clipboards and they're just writing stuff and they give us a group like task and you've all got to like communicate well, but you can't interrupt somebody, but you've still got to use your voice. You don't want to like fade into the background. It's all this like politics kind of when you're like overthinking everything you say whilst people are like scribbling down notes about you. And I mean, the last one I did with John, I don't just say it. Don't want to slag any company off. But the last one I did, I got a spot in the assessment centre. Like I got an offer at the company, and then I ended up actually not taking it because that whole process has just worn me down so much that I was
I
like,
can't do a full-time job now.
yeah, like that whole like culture. I realised very quickly, this is not me.
Yeah.
You obviously had certain companies that you wanted to work for, but PLM was still kind of bubbling in the background. Did you ever think that, like, do I want to work for a corporate company? Do I want to work for an SME? Do I want to work for an agency? Did you have that kind of thought process, like, going on?
Not at all. I was very much like, it's almost like a vanity metric, but job. You know, when someone on LinkedIn, when you work at like Apple, and then in your headline, if you've left, it's like ex-Apple.
Or like
it,
Stephen Bartlett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean much, but it's like that like clout factor.
It is, yeah.
I do it sometimes, even subconsciously with brands. Like I've worked with some amazing small businesses, but I'm always straight to be like, well, I worked with Lounge Underwear. I worked with Kraft Heinz, and like the name carries weight. But
it does.
It's all experience. It's all like you're achieving great things, whether you're in a new business, a startup, a global company. So I was very much, I want to work in a giant company. I think my understanding of what that role, salary, life experience would look like now is very different, because I know more people who have kind of gone through the, I guess, traditional process. So yeah, I was very much, I want to work for a big brand. I want to move to London. I want to do all these things.
Same.
I want to be like Emily in Paris. Like that show was out back then. But essentially it just started as a hobby. I wanted a place to find other people that, new marketers who were also confused, because marketing is big and confusing. And even 2 and a bit years in, when I get paid to talk on stage about what I know, I know like this much out of like this whole
marketing is such a massive umbrella term. There's so much in that, like video editing, copywriting, social media strategy, brand design, so much involved.
Yeah, it's a lot. So there was that aspect, but also like a really great way for me to get some experience. I was working in an influencer marketing agency at the time. It was the worst time, in Cheltenham where I live. So it was just like a team of 3 of us. And that very quickly solidifies that I did not want to work in partnerships, anything like that. I did not have a good time. But I lacked any social media experience to then like potentially pursue that as a career post uni. So PLM ticked both of those boxes. Never did I ever intend for it to be a business. I, my whole life, had never even known anyone that owned a business or started a business. So I didn't even think, I don't know, like it just didn't cross my mind.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by Fabric, a marketing training academy that runs a world-leading master strategy program for marketers looking to excel in their careers. The program teaches you frameworks that have been used by global brands and coaches you how to build a live marketing strategy in just 12 weeks. Now, I personally know many people who have completed Fabric's program and who have benefited directly from gaining promotions and accessing dream job roles, to accessing increased marketing budgets and gaining the confidence to excel in their careers. Fabric is kindly offering listeners of this podcast 10% off their program, so you can secure your place on it. For more information, check out the link in the bio. Use code REBELS10 in all capitals to claim the offer.
For people who don't know PLM, just quickly describe what PLM is and how it started.
Oh, good question. I don't know what PLM is. PLM's lots of things. I'm actually working with a business coach at the moment to redefine like what is all of this into something more strategic and easy to explain. Because I think when you've been doing something for a while, it just grows, and then you have to, contain it at some point. But I guess in short, PLM is a online community and educating space for people in social media. As part of that, I also work with brands, essentially an educator for people that want to learn more about social media strategy, personal branding, LinkedIn, a little fun hub. And exactly how it started was in that lockdown time, began as an Instagram page, after Google searches, tears, a bit of a panic.
What was the what was the trigger that made you create? Do you remember that day when you actually created the Instagram page? Talk me about it. Yeah.
My partner was out. He plays hockey every Saturday, and it was a Saturday. And it's really funny, actually. I've been with James, or I had been with him then. We've been together 8 years now. So it would have been 5 or 6 years then. And he came home and I'd made like the PLM logo. If anyone is listening who's been there since the start, I'm so sorry.
Me.
That logo ugly. It was
I remember it.
Myself.
It wasn't that bad.
It was so bad. You're being
It's been elevated.
Yeah, build up. And I remember I shut my laptop when I hid it for like a week. I didn't want to tell him about it because I don't know, it feels embarrassing to try something new, doesn't it? It's so
can we talk about that?
We can.
Because like once you put yourself out there and create something, unless you're immediately really successful, everyone's like, what are you doing? Oh my God, that's so cringe. Like even when I started my business and did the video for my website, when my friends was like, oh, it's only a little bit cringe, isn't it? And I was like, bitch, I've just spent like £500 on this video. I've been trekking around the streets of Manchester to create this video. I've paid £1,000 for it to be edited, and that is your first bit of feedback. But I think it's so true, like because people, this is why I have so much respect for creators, and I feel like you'll probably share a similar opinion. Like, to have that level of confidence to put yourself out there and say, you know what I have to say is valuable, to take up somebody's time in their day, or this content is worthy of being in someone's newsfeed. That level of confidence, like, I aspire to be like that level. So for you to create something completely from scratch when there wasn't really a community like Pretty Little Marketer in your space, so you're a pioneer. You're groundbreaking.
No, I totally agree. I was in so when I was at uni, I had like a close group of 3 friends. Met my best friend in the whole world at uni as well. She's a star. But like, as part of that, in our cohort, I think it was called at uni, there was like a bigger, like a Snapchat group, and that was the only, I haven't used Snapchat since. I absolutely hate it. And I remember someone screenshotted PLM because I'd finally, like, a weekend would hit like 800 followers or something exciting, and I'd put it on my personal Instagram story. And I've still got a screenshot actually, because I'd posted it on Facebook, and I was like, oh, I have done this, like, so timid about it. Like, if you would like to follow, like, you can do. And someone had screenshotted either the Facebook post or the story. And I think, because it was quickly deleted, it was put in, like, that big group with the caption of, like, what are you doing? Or, like, what is she doing? Or, like, who does she think she is? Something along those lines. It was quickly deleted because I think it's meant for, you know, big group chats have, like, secret group chats that I'm never a part of.
Somebody fucked up. Somebody's getting fired.
I remember in that moment, like, all of those insecurities of it being embarrassing, like, absolutely, like, flooded back in. And I'm the exact same when I see people starting businesses, even just posting on LinkedIn, that first post. It's not as easy as just post, just give it a go. Like, it's hard. It takes consideration, it takes guts, and it's scary.
Yeah, because the audience size is massive, right? Your first post could go viral. Like,
Hope it doesn't.
There's no like limit to what you can achieve. If you were to say that one-to-one to somebody in person, that's scary enough. Yeah. But imagine if this is going to be seen potentially by thousands of people. I hate that bit of advice where it's just post.
Yeah.
Like, it's not as simple as that. And I think for a lot of people, like platforms like LinkedIn, Instagram, there's a confidence as well that you have to acquire. You can learn the algorithm, you can know how to write great copy, you can know how to create Canva graphics, but having the confidence to actually post it and then not sit checking your notifications frantically, like, oh my god, shit, should I delete it? It didn't get any likes in the first 10 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that like panic frenzy. To get over that is big in itself.
Oh, absolutely.
So once you'd created the page, what were your kind of next steps then? So you've created the page, you create the logo, you have a rough idea of what you want to do. What happens next?
I just start posting. I posted every day. For the first year, posted on weekends as well, like 7 days a week, and I genuinely don't know how I did it. Because I know more now, obviously, than I did then, but somehow I was doing more. And I remember I just have so much fun, interact with people in comments. Every time I got a really sweet DM, I would either cry or screenshot it for later so I could then cry about it. Because I just felt so grateful that, I don't know, that there was this space now that, like, I could be myself on stories or in my posts if I was struggling, but also other people could see that and know that that's okay. So from June, when it was born, to December, I was just posting, hoping for the best, purely on Instagram.
Yeah.
And in January 2021, I found myself unexpectedly unemployed. I think we were going into another lockdown. Yeah. I hadn't yet graduated, so I wasn't really ready for a full-time job. So I just started posting on LinkedIn. I took my Instagram posts and literally I didn't even post them as carousels. I just uploaded like 5 pictures and it was all very messy. And started freelancing from clients that I found on LinkedIn. And I guess it was then when I was like, oh, maybe I could do this. And that kind of like perception switch of, is more than just a hobby now. There was like 10,000 people on Instagram at that time. And I remember like seeing posts like, if you have an audience of this many people, you can do this. And I was like, oh, I can? Like, I can do that too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of like the monetary aspect of it just came out of a need of, crap, I'm unemployed, I need to pay my bills, I can't get a big girl job just yet, what can I do instead? So yeah, just stumbled. Still stumbling.
What's the story behind the name? Why did you call it Pretty Little Marketer?
No idea. I genuinely wish I could remember. I don't know if that day was just so bad that I blocked it out of my memory. I actually wanted to call PLM the Marketing Babe. And I know we're not here to judge or call anything cringe, but that sucks. It's about everyone. That is awful. And it's really funny because when I look back, I don't think PLM would be PLM if it didn't have the name.
No.
But that was so unstrategic. I don't know, maybe I'd seen a PLT advert. There's Pretty Little Liars on Netflix as well. So I don't know if subconsciously it was just like mingling up in my brain. But the Marketing Babe makes me it was taken on Instagram. So sorry
Thank
to the
God.
sorry to the actual person who, whatever you're doing with that name, good luck to you. But yeah, it was taken, and that was just the next thing in the list in my head. It was not taken, thank goodness. So I just made the Instagram page and went with it. So I have no idea. I think it was just an act of the universe. They sent me a gift.
I love it because
no clue.
it's got such a great brand identity now. Like I feel like PLM is the blueprint for a social media community, and you do so many different things. Like you're saying, you're trying to kind of niche down what PLM is, but I almost see it as it's a community for marketers or for upcoming budding marketers. It's also a place for very experienced professionals to continue learning and keeping up with trends. But also you work with brands as well. So you're kind of like ticking all these boxes, which is genius. But what I wanted to ask was, how did you grow so quickly? Because I think I actually remember when you had like 400 or 500 followers. I don't know how we connected way back when, but I remember seeing this and I'd go back to your page and go, oh my God, it's been a day and there's like 200 extra followers. And it was so quick. Can you put that down to anything? Do you think you did anything strategically or?
I think in the beginning, no. I don't think I really sat down to make a social media marketing strategy until maybe year one. 6 months into freelancing, I was getting leads. I was working with some really cool brands, but I kind of had this thought of like, oh, how do I keep this up? Like, it's works now because I've kind of just stumbled along. But I think actually for that first year, having no plan and no strategy, like unintentionally, that was really lucky because I wasn't trying to put myself in a box of this person does it this way. I've done my competitor analysis. Like obviously for anyone starting a business now, don't recommend just stumbling into it, but that almost like childlike naivety, I suppose, of, oh, like I think this is a good idea, or someone recommended this in a DM, let me just whip something up on Canva and post it. I think timing was definitely on my side again, really unintentionally. I mean, we were in pandemic, it was coming up graduation for a lot of people, but I think the one thing that I try to instill in PLM is this kind of like difference to any other community, agency, social media space out there, and that I just want it to be an honest space. I don't want you to see my post about funnels and feel confused because now you feel less of a marketer because you don't understand it. I want you to see it. And I was like challenged in my teens. I used to go to a youth group and we were posed this question of what do you want to be known for? And it's really funny now because I teach that exact question in a marketing sense. And I remember writing down my answer and we folded it up, we put it all in a little basket. And my answer to what I want to be known for was that I want everyone to leave a conversation with me feeling better than they did entering it, whether that's more confident, happier about their day, more enlightened, more, I don't know, educated. And I think because PLM is an extension of me, that is what I put into every piece of content, every webinar. It's very people focused. I want to pay my bills, but I couldn't care any less what I earn, who I work with. I just want to have fun, do cool things, and take all of these amazing people in the audience with me. So yeah, I guess that kind of like honest, integral foundation is what I hope makes it different.
No, I definitely, from the outside, it definitely does make it different, because there's so many people who see an explosion of any kind of upcoming field, like personal branding, that's exploded recently last year, or any kind of other facet of marketing, that suddenly there's an opportunity. And as soon as there's an opportunity, same with like ChatGPT at the moment, so many people have suddenly become ChatGPT experts. And I don't blame them, because there's opportunity, take advantage of it 100%. But one thing that I love about your community is it always feels like exactly how you described. You really get that sense.
Good.
Because otherwise, you see content on my newsfeed and it's like, I grew to 100,000 followers in 30 days. This is how I did it. This is what you must do. This is what you need to do. You never say like, this is what you have to do, or this is what you should do, or this is what you shouldn't be doing. It's almost like, this is what you could do.
Yeah.
And I actually love that, because you're never preaching anything to anybody or saying, if you're not doing this, then you're doing it wrong. Because what you show is there is no specific way to do it. You can have success and, you can get to that success point with many different kind of routes that you can take. Some things that you said, which I was going to point out, was you said things like, it was an accident, stumbled, you never meant to do it. And that's just so refreshing as well, because I'm the same. Like, I never sat there and thought, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to do this and I'm going to hit this much revenue. But for anyone listening who's thinking of, what, I kind of would like to do something, but doesn't feel qualified enough or worthy enough, or as if they have enough skills, what would you say to them?
Oh my goodness, do it. I genuinely feel emotional, like hearing your story as well, because there are so many points in my journey, like even being here with you. I'm a panelist, like a massive event later this year, even down to my first ever free PLM webinar I did, like 3 months in. At no point did I sit there and think, awesome, like I'm an expert now, I can do it. Like day after day, it's a constant struggle of, oh my goodness, like I don't think I could do this, someone else could do this better. Something I tell a lot of my one-to-one students, I do one-to-ones pretty much every day. The best thing about my job is just meeting really cool people, and something that I always love to end on with them is that a lot of people can do what you do. A lot of people can do what you do, but better. But no one can do what you do the way you do it. I speak to a lot of freelancers, especially new freelancers, who are like, well, why would someone work with me? Well, you've just answered it, because it's you. And yeah, I just hope that everyone knows that, I don't know, you have something special that I can't do, that you can't do. And not only is that a really great seller, but also for me, that gives me confidence. Okay, cool. Like someone could probably do a better carousel, but they can't do it like me with 100 emojis and curly fonts. And now I can just own my space rather than trying to own the whole of it.
Oh, I love that. Own your space rather than trying to own the whole of it. Love that. Also, something that I think your story demonstrates really well is the power of consistency. You said you posted like 7 days a week for a year, and at that point you probably weren't seeing a return on your investment or your time. And for a lot of people, including myself actually in the past, I've started Instagram pages or communities like before I had Yellow Hippo, where I was trying to do something or build something, and like 3 weeks in I like sack it off. And I think it's such a common thing, because you feel like you're not going fast enough because all these other people have just appeared to skyrocket overnight. So what would you say to somebody who is building and knows there's something there but isn't yet seeing the results? What kind of advice, or what should they be thinking? How should they be thinking?
Oh, that is great. When I started PLM, actually, I was in a group chat on WhatsApp with like 16 other girls who either ran similar pages, started small businesses at uni, and I think it's just me. 2 years later, I don't think any of those pages are active. I mean, the group chat is pretty quiet now because it's been a while, and they were all incredibly talented young women who had great visions, and I don't know why like each one of them like would have dropped off, but like if only, if only they had carried on like 2 years down the line, you could do what PLM does, like, but tenfold, or your business could be, I don't know, what if? And for me, it's always that what if, that this is really deep, but I don't want to get to the end. I don't want to be 80 in my rocking chair with all of my cats and my pets and think like, oh, what if? Like, what if I did post more than 2 weeks? Because you just never know. That long game for me has been really important, and again, it's been really unstrategic. I'm launching my first ever digital product in 2 weeks.
Congratulations.
I'm re-strategizing now to hopefully create some like courses and other bits now, but that is, by the time that launches, that's going to be 3 years after PLM was born. I think the sole reason I didn't do any of that sooner is because I thought of, I'm not good enough, I'm not an expert. So I think that often holds us back. But two, now knowing that I have 3 years of experience under my belt that you, as the audience, have seen because you've been there, it's literally on the internet, you can't argue with it. I think there's something about that builds a trust that, I don't know, if I was on TikTok for a week, went viral, and now I'm selling my 1599 virality TikTok course. I don't know. I think there's just something about it that consumers, your audience, we can tell. We know who to trust. But yeah, back to that thought of what if? Like, what if it does work? And if it doesn't, like that's fine. You can do something new. That's okay.
100%. I have this like approach to things now, which I definitely didn't have when I started the business. And I asked myself a question in every scenario, if I've got like two options. So it could be something as simple as like, do I go to the gym? Do I sit at home and watch Netflix? Or should I like reach out to this potential client that I really want to work with? Or should I not, because they're above my level? The question is always, what would the hottest, most successful version of me do?
Love that.
Every scenario it works. It's because because I'm not yet that hottest, successful version of me, I might never be what I have in my mind. But it's like, what would that person do? It's almost like taking yourself out of it. And what would that person who has like ruthless confidence and like almost a delusional, I would admit I have like a delusional level of self-confidence now, because if you don't, then no opportunities are gonna come your way. Like, you've got to carry yourself with the expectation that you're worthy of that opportunity, because if you don't, other people will.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, absolutely. I started going to therapy recently. It was very exciting. And I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder and OCD when I was 14. And something that, again, like going back to those, like never feeling good enough, holding me back, 3 years in, now releasing things that I found. I've always thought that self-improvement was bullshit. Turns out it's not. And when you get yourself in order, business also becomes much easier. So it's been a long time coming. But something, my therapist is called David, and he's adorable. I love him like he was my dad. He is so sweet. Something I used to do to like challenge my thoughts was ask myself, what's the worst that could happen? Thinking it was a really good reframe, like, oh, what's the worst that can happen? Oh, they don't reply. If we're networking on LinkedIn, they don't reply. I feel like an idiot. I guess those are the worst things that could happen. But actually what I've been learning is this kind of reframe of what's the best thing that can happen. Because even when we're challenging ourselves on, what's the worst thing that can happen, like, we're still planting those thoughts negative in our mind, doubts. Although we're speaking them and we're kind of trying to brush them aside, we're not. So actually, what is the best that can happen? They can reply, they see my name on a job pile in a year and they remember my message. What are the best possible outcomes that can come of that? And who's to say that's not possible? Because it is. It's just our brains.
100%. And also, like, self-improvement and bettering yourself doesn't always look like a 5 a.m. morning gym routine, pumping weights at the gym, listening to a really like intense motivational podcast. It can be something so much simpler, and it doesn't have to be this kind of big like hectic routine, hustle culture, grind. It doesn't have to be like that. Just like finding your purpose, I think, alone
just finding your why and getting comfortable with that as well. Like knowing that your purpose is different to everybody else's. So what you see online and what they're doing shouldn't affect you because that's their purpose.
Yeah.
And you're in your own lane and you're going to go achieve amazing things in your own little space.
It's so true.
I have another question that I've been meaning to ask was the transition from Instagram to LinkedIn and what that did for your brand. Because how big was the PLM community at that time?
So in January 2021, so every time PLM hits like a milestone, whether it's like a certain 1,000 follower, like a good post, a dream client in my inbox, whatever that is, I'll always screenshot it and I save it all on my laptop. And it's handy actually because in moments like this, I can remember exactly how many followers we had. So when I started on LinkedIn, it was January 2021. PLM had existed for 5 to 6 months on Instagram, and we had 8 to 10,000 followers at that time. When I started as Sophie, so I post on my personal profile every day and the PLM profile. I think I had like 100 or 200 connections from my old job, and the PLM page was literally brand new. It had never existed before.
And now, how many followers does Sophie have and how many followers does PLM have on LinkedIn?
So Sophie, I have 119,000, and PLM I think has like 143,000.
That is insane. That's insane.
LinkedIn is the place to be right now. And if you're serious about scaling your personal brand, then Taplio is your new best friend. Taplio is the first all-in-one LinkedIn tool that allows you to create high-performing content, schedule your posts, analyze performance, and engage with others. Taplio are kindly offering all listeners of this podcast 1 month subscription for only, wait for it, $1. Literally $1. To find out more, click the link in the bio and use code REBELSPODCAST in capitals to claim the offer.
100, 200 connections to nearly 120k followers in what was the time space there?
2.25 years.
2.25 years of consistency, of good content, of being yourself and authentic and like just leading with integrity, and that the power that community has, like you don't really think about it, but that's so many people.
It changed my life.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what PLM would be if LinkedIn was never added into that kind of like content mix, because it kind of took PLM from being like, oh, that's a community, to like I don't know, it feels much more established when you add in that LinkedIn aspect.
It gives it a layer of authority as well.
Sure.
Because your network, I imagine, would have massively improved as well, because you've suddenly got access to decision makers at big companies that you might have admired at one point, and now those people are liking your post and engaging and DMing you and want to work with you.
Yeah, all through LinkedIn. I don't know if I can share this, but I have signed a contract. I signed my client last week.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
It's absolutely
I swear I saw a post you speaking about them once.
Yeah,
and it's crazy how that's happened.
It's so full circle, and it was their head of social, head of marketing that reached out, and the DM was literally just like, hi Sophie, like, we have a freelance opportunity, like do you want to have a call? And we had a call that same day, but there was a prior conversation in the LinkedIn chat that I'd totally forgotten about.
Okay.
So in 2021, when I was graduating, again, this was on that employer list. They were hiring for like a junior social media manager, and then like a similar role, but it had a different name.
Yeah.
I had reached out to that person who now DM'd me, and I was just like, hey, I'd love to work here, but like it was just an inquiry, which one would you recommend for someone with a year of experience? And she replied. She was on maternity leave at the time, and I can't remember if I applied. Like I don't even remember that conversation. But how wild that just through consistently posting on LinkedIn, that same person, you know, when they were in a boardroom where they were like, oh, we need a freelancer. I don't know if there was a long list of people. I don't know if it was just the straight thought to Sophie, but just through being there and showing up with good content some days, really bad content other days, but for 2 years just being in front of them, a global company who's been on my dream employee list for years reaches out to me, who lives in a tiny apartment in the middle of nowhere, who grew up with 2 parents who didn't have much, didn't go to uni, all because you're there. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. I do nothing that
That is,
no one else can
it's
do.
really inspiring, and it's ultimately it's the power of personal branding, but also LinkedIn as a platform.
Absolutely.
Where it is today is insane. I think that there's so many like people out there who might be struggling to get a job or are competing in this graduate job market that just have never considered LinkedIn as a space, as a platform, and also an educational space as well. I learned so much from other creators on LinkedIn, and it's nice to see like a wave of young people as well on the platform.
Sure. I think with LinkedIn as well, it gives you access to people that you wouldn't normally have access to. I follow this really awesome guy on TikTok called JT Barnett. I don't know if you've
Yes,
seen his
yeah.
favorites. My biggest flex is that he followed me back on Instagram. Although I think I've replied to a few of his stories. Maybe it was an accidental follow. But like even people like him, like I think he is awesome. Hundreds of thousands on TikTok, on Instagram, much smaller community on LinkedIn, much more likely to check those DMs because they're there for business. Even like, like Logan Paul, Mr. Beast, like all of these insanely removed people from me, I could probably pop a DM to on LinkedIn. CEOs, your dream clients, you're in front of people in a way that you just wouldn't be.
Insane. Like I have a client who in 2021 I think had the Guinness World Record for the most viewed Facebook page in the world. Like more than Kim Kardashian, any artist, musician, footballer. And it's like mad. Like how has that happened? How's that person working with me? That would never happen if I wasn't on LinkedIn. Like it's amazing the opportunity is. Like if anyone's listening, I can't recommend it enough.
Oh my goodness,
like build your personal brand. It is the future of the working world. And also you can skip that whole interview, test, assessment center, like scrap that. You literally got an opportunity in your inbox.
Absolutely. I think what I really love about LinkedIn is even if I was a job seeker, I'm quite happy working for myself now, but I might give up one day, who knows? I find that I perform well in interviews. I'm quite a chatty person, hopefully quite a likeable person too. But something I always struggled with in that graduate stage was the damn CV. How do I convey everything that makes me a fun person to work with in a CV where I can't use emojis? I can't underline a line to make it sound more like me. LinkedIn for me is that opportunity to take control of that first impression and make it something that represents you rather than boring one-page CV about my job in Cath Kidston when I was 18. No one cares about.
No, I love that. Because your community is so big now. I mean, across IG and LinkedIn, roughly how many followers are we talking with the PLM?
I think combined, so there's TikTok as well. I don't really post that. I got lucky with a viral video, but I include it in my account.
Of course.
I think we're like 350k at this point. Obviously,
that's amazing.
There's going to be followers across platforms, but just taking the numbers as they are. That's where we're at.
For somebody who has an idea and wants to create something, whatever that may be, on social media, online, it might be a blog, it might be a TikTok page, it might be a YouTube channel, and has that bit of doubt or is unsure where to begin, what advice would you give them?
Oh, good question. I think aside from that kind of like self-belief, what if piece and just do it, which is great encouragement, but like tangible advice. Sophie, what do I do with that? I can't turn that into a piece of content. Something I teach, so like my goal and I guess what I want to be known for as a marketer aside from my business is just someone who makes like socials and strategy simple, because I think it can be, but us marketers like to use big words and pretend we're clever and make it complicated. A question that I always come back to in every one-to-one, every client call, I've mentioned it today already, is that question of what do you want to be known for, and like kind of questioning your why. I want to be known for the go-to place for sneakerheads in the UK to find out about new launches and connect with, other people who love fashion. Great, that's our end goal. Now we can start working back from that simply. If my goal was to be healthier, I wouldn't just wake up one day and be like, I am going to be healthy today.
Oh
I'd
my gosh.
work backwards.
Exactly. That's like I just had a light bulb moment then, because I was like, that's such a good way of putting it.
I
Like,
teach it every day.
stop thinking about outcomes and start thinking about like things you can inputs that
Yeah.
you can deliver day in, day out, and
Absolutely.
incrementally grow. I mean, you said earlier that only kind of now are you really kind of putting the business element to PLM.
Yeah.
And it's how long is it taking you to get? Just give us a quick rundown of the things you're doing now that most people would probably feel pressure to do from day one.
Yeah, so I have a few fun online courses in the mix. I start work with a business coach on Friday, actually, which I'm so excited for. Because I think when something is yours and you're in it, it can be hard sometimes to like get out of it.
Yeah.
Digital courses, a new website, hopefully a membership. All these things I probably wanted to do about 6 months in, but again, really glad I waited until now. Even down to like new services, speaking services. You can book me as a speaker. I can do a workshop in your company for your team. So yeah, everything.
And it's been gradual as well, and intentional as well, really purposeful, I feel.
Yeah.
Like you haven't seen something and thought, I'm going to do that because it's going to stack some extra cash in the bank. It's like, I'm going to do this when it feels right. And everything you do, I feel like you put your community first.
Oh, always. I do a lot of like sponsored content. It's really funny actually, because when I sign those contracts, it's like company and influencer, and like I just don't see me or PLM as like an influencer. I got a very well-known company reach out a month ago, and it was like in the thousands in terms of payment for like a reel and I think a newsletter feature. And I said no, because I use literally a competitor. I post about them all the time. I love them. And for me, like, it just wasn't worth selling out my values. That could have paid my rent for a year. But I think it goes back to that thought again of like, people know, like, how often do you see like your favorite business person one day getting a podcast sponsor that, you know, they'd talked about 3 years ago, or, you know, we've got a small influencer, micro-influencer, influencing against fast fashion, but one day, boohoo, get in touch, you know, 2K, sign, do us a reel, and then suddenly, like, that perception changes, and if you're in it for the long game, you want to build something that people believe in, it's the same trust as a relationship, a friendship, isn't it? It's more than just...
You have to retain the reputation, right? Because that's the one thing that will serve you long term, your personal brand, as we've discussed so many times. It's the one thing that that people remember you for. As soon as you go against that thing they know you for, and you've kind of flipped the switch a little bit, that kind of trust is gone. And once you've lost the trust, all the things you wanted to do with that community kind of disappear. So where can people find you?
Ooh, at Pretty Little Marketer, pretty much everywhere. On LinkedIn, I am Sophie Miller, just me.
Lovely. And final question, I ask every guest that comes onto this podcast, because we are called Rebels. Do you have an unpopular opinion that one day potentially could get you cancelled? And if so, what is it?
I don't think it could get me cancelled, because I'm not quite that.
Cause some controversy.
I don't think vanity metrics exist. I actually have I'm pointing over there because that's where my phone is. I have like multiple LinkedIn posts drafted about how I don't think that likes are a vanity metric. I think that follower count matters. Have multiple posts drafted that I've just never posted because I know I'll get rinsed. So yeah, I don't think vanity metrics exist. I don't think that's a thing.
So there's nothing wrong with having loads of followers, loads of likes on your content. Do you think it's a positive?
Absolutely. I think if you're attaching it to an aim, I think the intention is the key, is the vanity. Yeah, that's a problem. Because if I'm launching a new product, my goal is obviously going to be product sales, but leading up to that, my reach is, especially on LinkedIn, is probably going to be the biggest metric I follow, which I know many would consider a vanity metric, not directly streaming in income. That reach is going to be really important because in turn I'm getting brand awareness, top funnel, funneling people down. I think that in social media community culture, especially on LinkedIn, I think a lot of times we see someone use a phrase or say, you know, quality over quantity. If we see it posted enough times by people we trust, we just
Believe it.
yeah, it just becomes the thing, and it's Bible and it's truth. But I think the problem with that, especially when it comes to vanity metrics, is we're forgetting about things like funnels, where people are. The data. My boyfriend's a data scientist, which I always love to flex because he's amazing, and he's working with me now to do like data analysis and all the PLM stuff and things like our likes, the biggest spikes in our follower count, the biggest spikes in newsletter signups. Inform my content strategy, inform what is going to go in my online courses, hugely. But if I just disregarded that most liked post as, it's just vanity, then I don't know, my online course wouldn't be as tailored as it could be. So I think we're too quick to discard, followers don't matter. I think they do.
I love that. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to Rebels podcast with me, Shoaib Ahmed. If you've been watching us on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you've been listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, then please give us a 5-star rating and a follow. The more successful this podcast gets, the bigger and better guests we can have on in the future. Thank you.